think we overcomplicate the offering. It's not complicated at all. I believe God created the system to where there is love for God by showing love towards each other. The beautiful part of the description we have so far, and I believe that I've seen, is that there's a love affair going on not only with God, but there's a love affair going on with the tribes. The tribes themselves, the priesthood. Keep it in mind in Genesis, where we started, I believe, where we started in Genesis. Now we've gone from Genesis to Exodus, and now we're in Leviticus. It was all about creating an environment for the accomplishment of the various covenants. I talked a little bit about, in previous videos, a little bit about the covenant with Abraham, but I believe where there is the most significance, it started with the Noahic covenant. I believe this set the stage for the three sons to begin to branch out and take over the world as talked about in the book of Matthew. But what happened was they lost the value system of Noah, just as they did previously, which was the reason for the flood. And they began to take on the belief systems of other tribes, other rituals. So I believe the love story of the tribe of Israel is all about getting the people, the sacrificial story is all about getting the people back to kingdom of God principles. And I think this happens over a period of time. There's a renewing after so many years. And it's happened with so many of the stories in the Bible. That's the reason why when people want to argue whether Jesus was real or not, you're missing the whole point of the sacrificial story of the sacrificial lamb, which are people who come out and they focus truly on the truth principles of the kingdom of God and demonstrate that love and that respect with the people that they're leading from a lost place where there was once blessing to another place. And it happens over and over and over again. We allow people through marketing practices, selfishness, and what have you, to get us off track. We know this to be true even in our own lives, let alone the lives of a congregation of people. Part of the problem is people that God has called to great things settle for average things. So God has given them great influence, God has given them great purpose, and they take on a certain level of personal success, and they're no longer willing to go through the sacrificial process of leading the people to Canaan. Because keep in mind, we're trying to keep it simple. We're not trying, we're keeping it simple. We're going from Genesis all the way to Revelation, keeping the main thing. And today the main thing is Moses getting the people to Canaan. We're in the midst of him dropping kingdom of God bombs, principles on the people through the building of the tabernacle, the tent, the Ark of the Covenant, the table for burnt offerings and that sort of thing, because these are all principles of the kingdom of God. And so we are here in the trespass offering. We've talked about the sin offering. We've talked about the peace offering. We've talked about the burnt offering, which is a meat offering. This is what we've talked about so far. I hope you understand that the burnt offering is a meat offering. There's not always an offering that is consumed by fire. There were some people that, just gave offerings that were not burnt offerings. But the offerings that we're talking about are all burnt offerings. You being the first burnt offerings. Just to recap a little bit. Keeping in mind, using the calves, or the bullocks, actually, the bullocks and the calves. But there were times that you used a young bullock, like in the sin offering, where and also the burnt offering, where it was necessary for just the meat offering. There were times you used the female, there were times you used the male, but in some cases you can use either or. And there are reasons for all of that. And so I'm just trying to take you down a simple road with some basic with some basic questions that you can ask. Like, for example, what is the significance of the blood being offered at the bottom of the altar by the priest, not by you? In the trespass offering, it's in the book of, we're still in the book of Leviticus, but we're in chapter 5. And again, study to show yourself approved, but I want to give you some basics to study. And it talks about two different things, the iniquity and the trespass offering. I think it's important to point out in the sin, iniquity, and the trespass that the iniquity is a conclusion. The iniquity is the punishment. The iniquity is the thing that you have suffered, the punishment, for the thing that you have done, all starting with the sin. In chapter 5, verse 1, it says, and if your soul sin and hear the voice of swearing, which is an oath, not swearing like shit, piss, damn. It's swearing, an oath, and is a witness whether he hath seen or known, he do not utter, then he shall bear his iniquity, the iniquity of the one who is swearing. So, in other words, I swear an oath, you hear it, I break it, you don't say anything, you have taken on the iniquity, the very punishment of the other person. If it be caught. Now, these sometimes are caught, sometimes aren't caught. Some of you know exactly what I'm saying. That's why you want to be careful who you hang around. I'll read it again so that you can hear it. Again. And if a soul sin and hear the voice of oath, and whether he hath seen or known, he do not utter, then he shall bear his iniquity. And if a soul sin and hear the voice of an oath, and a witness, whether he hath seen or known, he do not utter, then he shall bear his iniquity. I'm getting rid of all the italicized words. I'm reading out of the King James Version, trying to keep it as whole as possible so that you can study to show yourself approved. This is the reason why good company is important. One reason. So this is the iniquity that's also in chapter 5 in the confession. But let's read on. Or should I do a Levi 5:2? I want to read on. In verse 2, or if a soul touch any unclean thing, whether, and keep in mind it said, if a soul touch any unclean thing, if a soul touch any unclean thing, okay, a carcass of an unclean beast or a carcass of an unclean cattle. An unclean cattle is one that doesn't belong to you. I know that much. Or the carcass of an unclean creeping thing, and it be hidden from him, he also shall be unclean and guilty. Or if he touch the uncleanness of man, whomsoever unclean, that a man shall be defiled withal, and it be hidden from him, when he knows, then he shall be guilty. Or if a soul swear an oath, pronouncing with lips to do evil, so you pronounce an oath to do wrong, or to do good, whatsoever that a man shall pronounce with an oath, and it be hid from him, when he knows, then he shall be guilty in one of these. And it shall be, when he shall be guilty in one of these, that he shall confess that he hath sinned, and in that, and he shall bring his trespass offering. Now, what I want to do is simplify this, make it simple. If you do wrong, confess you did wrong. And then bring your trespass offering. Here's your trespass offering. Bring your trespass offering unto the Lord for his sin, his guilty offense, his admitted guilt, a female from the flock, a lamb or a kid of the goats. So this is a young lamb or a young goat for a sin offering, and the priest makes atonement, which was actually already talked about when it said Lord for his sin. That word sin is priest makes atonement. So it's kind of saying it twice. And shall make atonement for him concerning his sin. If he be not able to bring a lamb, then he shall bring for his trespass which he hath committed 2 turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. This isn't about the money. And I'm going to throw you off a little bit, and I'm going to say this is more about accountability. The idea is not to go to the priest behind the veil, because if you notice, this was done at the door of the tabernacle. There was no veil. The veil was for the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant was. I think we've had bad teaching as it pertains to what this looks like. Keep in mind that the tribe of Israel were priests. There is a difference between anointed priest and priest. There's a difference between the priest that worked beyond the veil and the priest that worked before the veil. We're all priests in the spirit of the tribe of Israel. The idea is that you enter into a person's home and you have an honest. This is the general idea. The idea is that you enter into a person's home and you have an honest conversation, in particular with the person that you've wronged. In particular, this is also discussed in the New Testament because these principles are based upon the Old Testament. We get the wrong idea that the guy standing on stage is the priest. Notice that they're not talking about Aaron. The trespass offering is just that. If you trespass against someone, you bring a gift. And the idea of bringing a young goat or a young lamb is that you bring your best. Because the younger they are, the more of a seed they are, but they're mature enough where they can make a choice what they want to do with it. It could be used as a burnt offering, or it could be used for creating more lambs. It could be used for anything. It's your best. So the trespass offering is the responsibility of the person who knows that they sinned, and then they come in and they confess that sin. Now, it's much more than that, but I've already gone almost 17 minutes, so we're going to leave it there. Levi chapter 5.